We are looking at a black box log that Boris just posted to the BetaFlight thread on RC groups, and I wanted to just take a minute and comment on it. What you're seeing here is at the top the filtered gyro data in the latest version of BetaFlight using the new Biquad filter that Boris is working on. And what you're seeing at the bottom is the unfiltered gyro data. Now, you know, if you watch this channel and you watch my black box analysis videos, that the thickness of this line generally indicates the amount of vibration or noise, as it's called, getting into the gyro. And so you can see that the filter is getting rid of a ton of noise. So first of all, sometimes people ask, I want to see the unfiltered gyro data in black box. And I think that that is interesting from a debugging perspective if, like Boris, you are trying to develop a kind of a filter, right? And you want to know whether the Biquad filter is better than the FIR filter or the PT1 filter. You want to figure out what filter parameters are best. You need to compare the before and the after so that you can evaluate how well your filter is working. But for the average pilot who is trying to tune, the pre-filter gyro data is kind of useless. I mean, I guess it might be nice to know how noisy your copter is, you know, in a sort of a raw sense. But from the perspective of flight performance, that kind of doesn't matter. All that matters is what the PID loop sees, and all the PID loop sees is what is coming through the filter. So if you can take this messy data and you can filter it down to make it this clean, that's all that really matters. You should get good flight performance. The other thing that I think is worth pointing out is that, you know, we talk about the thickness of these lines relating to how noisy your copter is and how much vibration it is. And seeing these two things side by side reminds me that that's not strictly true. This line, these gyro lines that we look at when I zoom out to 10%, that is how much noise is getting through the filters. And if we're all using the same filter, then thicker lines mean a noisier copter. But especially as we get to looking at, say, BetaFlight 2.3 or whatever it is that's got the Biquad filter versus BetaFlight, say, 2.16 that's got the FIR filter versus, for all I know, Boris is going to use the Biquad filter for 2 kilohertz and the FIR filter for 1 kilohertz. I don't know. The point is that if we're not looking at the exact same filter, we may not be looking at the exact same noise level. You may have a copter that has more vibration than another copter, but whose lines look cleaner because its filtering is better. From the perspective of flight performance, I'm not sure that that really matters because, again, what really matters is what's getting into your PID loop coming out of the gyro, coming out of the filter. But, you know, all things being equal, a copter that is more mechanically vibration-free is going to be better than a copter that is noisier and is getting filtered. I mean, you always want to go back to first principles, and the most fundamental thing you can do to make your copter fly better is make it mechanically sound. So if you have some kind of a frame made of maybe some kind of plastic and the arms are really flexy, that's not going to contribute to good flight performance. And we certainly can then take filtering and take some advanced software in the PID loop and make it fly as good as it can. But at the end of the day, stiffening up those arms is going to make it fly better. So at the end of the day, having a copter that's relatively vibration-free is ideal. So I think there could be some benefit to being able to see the raw gyro data. But ultimately, you know, if your copter has more noise and the filter is the same, your gyro lines are going to get thicker even if you're not looking at the raw data. So at the end of the day, you want to make these lines as thin as possible. And you can do that mechanically, or you can do that with software. I think we're very much at the point where the copters are flying. The PID loop is getting so good in BetaFlight that we can compensate for a lot of mechanical inadequacies in software. And we may be past the point where trying to shave the nth degree of mechanical goodness out of your design is a good place to spend your energy. You know, like I don't think very many mini quad pilots balance their props because the props are good enough from the factory and the software is good enough that we get great flight performance without having to do that. Likewise, balancing motors, right? Anyway, those are my thoughts. I thought this was really interesting, though, just to see how much noise is actually getting filtered out by these great software filters. You couldn't fly a copter with this much noise. I mean, you could, but your motors, your ESCs would be trying to jiggle and wiggle that fast, and they couldn't keep up, and they would smoke, right? And that's why we're seeing some people who go to 2 kilohertz and they're smoking motors because they didn't tune their PID values for 2 kilohertz. Oops. Before we had 2 kilohertz gyrosync, the PID loop couldn't try to drag the ESCs and motors back and forth fast enough to damage them unless you had really ridiculously high gains. But with 2 kilohertz, we've got this increased resolution that is letting these higher frequency components through, and it's more likely that you can damage stuff that way. Although, it looks like the Biquad filter is doing a fantastic job of filtering that stuff out. So this may be an example of why the Biquad filter is better than the FIR filter at 2 kilohertz. And I don't know, certainly this is all very preliminary information, but I would be interested to see what the FIR filter would do with this exact same input data. With the 2 kilohertz gyrosync, I've seen a few of the traces over on the video logs thread, and there is a lot of high frequency information getting into the P trace. And we don't see that here with the Biquad filter, so presumably the Biquad filter is going to make 2 kilohertz gyrosync a little bit safer for people who don't pay very, very close attention to their tune. Hopefully you'll just get bad flight performance instead of smoking motors and ESCs, or gosh, maybe you'll get good flight performance. Who knows? Anyway, that's it for that, and as always, happy flying.